President Sister Wilcox, Provost, Ambassador, Jerica, thank you for the wonderful invitation. Southern Virginia students, faculty, and friends, thank you so much for your kind introduction today. I'm greatly humbled to see so many smiling and happy faces here today. Sitting on the stand with President Wilcox, it dawned on me that perhaps some of you are here with an ulterior motive. I apologize now if you came because you thought I was going to follow the precedent set by President Wilcox and buy you all pizza. Not going to happen. But I will make a special offer here at the end of the presentation. So if you survive to the end of the presentation, you do have a special offer that you can take advantage of, at least for some of you. I seek not for power, but to pull it down. I seek not for the honor of the world, but for the glory of my God and the freedom and the welfare of my country. These words have guided me over a 30-year career. As I considered today, in preparation for today, what I learned during a 30-year career and 38 months in combat on 4 different named operations, I was overwhelmed with a deep feeling of gratitude and desperately hope that I can share lessons of value with you as we face an uncertain and complex world. I remember well the formative and defining moments that you face now. They're moments of decision. Mentors, teachers, friends, family, they all help me along the way. My intent is to help you prepare to face combat, literally and figuratively, and figure out who you are. As we seek a profession, we often ask ourselves, who am I? Well, I learned early on that I am a sheepdog. I follow the shepherd, and I live to protect the flock and confront the wolf. We'll see if this works. Wow, look at that. Okay. Let me explain. A veteran once taught that if you have no capacity for violence, then you are a healthy, productive citizen, a sheep. God bless the sheep. If you have a capacity for violence and no empathy for your fellow citizens, then you're an aggressive sociopath, you're a wolf. But what if you have a capacity for violence and a deep love for your fellow citizens? What then? Well, then you're a sheepdog, a warrior, someone who's walking the hero's path, someone who can walk into the heart of darkness, into the universal human phobia, and walk out unscathed. Every day I'm grateful that I've walked back from combat tours in Panama, Iraq, and Afghanistan relatively unscathed by the darkness of war, due in large part to the light of love my wife and best friend of 30 years has brought into my life. Each morning I wake up and I reach out and I hold Donna's hand. I'm grateful for the gift of life to be with her. Now, it may appear to be a sharp contrast, but I am also very grateful for the gift of aggression. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "What goes on around you compares little with what goes on inside of you." Everyone has been given a gift or a talent. Some people have a gift for science, some a flair for art, some a flair for lip sync. Rex, you still out there? Rex? He's manning the camera. Just let Rex know I got some friends at OCS waiting for him. Okay. Warriors have been given a gift of aggression. Sheepdogs would no more misuse this gift than a doctor would misuse his healing arts. But they yearn for the opportunity to use their gift to help others. Today, I'll walk you through a series of events in my life in a Forrest Gump-like manner, in an effort to help you understand how to face combat, whether you're one of the precious sheep or a sheepdog. My only message for the wolves is that they will not prevail. I know this because the shepherd has made it clear. I cannot adequately share with you the deep feelings and emotions of combat. It's impossible. I will not attempt to shock you with pictures of the horror and the gore of war. I love you, my dear friends, too much to do that. but I will show you some pictures to help you understand some of the people and some of the stories I'd like to share with you today. As a Southern Virginia University student, you were selected based on your potential to stand with the motivational elite, or the doers, people that get things done. We have much in common. Sheepdogs are doers, and doers make great combat leaders. Oops. Let me try to go back here. There we go. Thanks. My grandfather, Albert, he's in the upper left-hand corner there. And my father, Brett Barraclough, he's in the middle, were men blessed with the gift of aggression and a love for others. Dad was a sheepdog. He inspired me to follow my heart, to go to West Point, and he supported me through my military career. Leslie flew in the Royal Air Force from 1941 to 1947. He was one of 3 pilots from his flight class of 68 who survived the war. We never talked about his experiences in World War II until after I returned from combat in Panama with the Rangers, and he knew I would understand him. Dad's first lesson was simple. All the heroes gave their lives for their countries, for the cause. I finally remember the heroes that I had the honor to serve with in combat, from Ranger Markwell to First Sergeant Curry to Major General Harry Green. I'm grateful for their comradeship, their sacrifice. Currently, I'm working in Harry Green's old office in the Pentagon. I consider it still to be his every day when I walk through the door. My real goal is to serve others throughout my life and make what sheepdogs do fun, like Harry did. My dad's second lesson was lasting. It was that words are easy. Show your actions with love. I'd like to share a true story with you real quick. I'd gone to West Point, and before I went to West Point, a bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had told me that my mission would be service in the military. When I got to West Point, I understand that I would have an opportunity to leave and serve a mission. My father was not at all happy when I told him that was my intent, that after all the work I'd gone through to get to West Point, I'd planned on leaving that and serving a mission. He was distraught. It was probably the most difficult time and the most strained time in our relationship. He later told me that he was upset because he didn't think I'd be able to go to West Point, go on a mission, and then return to West Point and graduate. And he said that because he didn't think he'd be able to do it. He just didn't see how anyone would have the intestinal fortitude to go through that. When I graduated from West Point, I presented him with a saber. Simple inscription. It was a cadet saber I carried when I graduated in the graduation parade. And it said, "Words are easy. Love you, Brett." Well, it proved I can be trained. And it proved also that sometimes we can even surprise our parents. That there are unforeseen forces, those helping us, that sometimes we can even reach beyond ourselves, beyond our own mortal capabilities. So as a Barraclough family tradition, you see us all listed there. What have we been fighting for? Well, the answer really is quite simple. We've been fighting for freedom, or what some call agency. So there's the family. One thing I'd like you to understand right up front is that warfare really is a team sport. And the Army is strong because we have strong families. It takes support from a strong family and lifelong friends to fight and win our wars, to protect our freedom and our agency. You must know about the loving and dedicated attributes of my family and friends to understand how you can face combat in your own way, and also to set the context for some of the formative comments I'm going to make later on. Please allow me to brag just for a moment about those I love who walked with me in the face of adversity. You see our daughter Amber is with us today, our son-in-law Ben. They're part of the SVU family. Levi, on the far right, he's a senior at BYU focused on graduating in April. Aaron, far left, He's a hardworking missionary in Mexico. Plans to return to the area here in August, where he will start his career at VMI. Autumn is a junior at West Springfield High School and has been inducted into the National Honor Society. We're very proud of her. Serving in the military is a team effort and requires sacrifice from all. Our children truly are amazing. They moved 13 times in our career and always made the best of each situation. As a family, we sacrificed as I spent 2 Christmas holidays, countless birthdays, and anniversaries deployed. Aaron put on a strong face when he learned that I would miss his high school graduation to deploy to Afghanistan. All the members of the family serve when a parent faces combat. Please join me in a round of applause for my family. That was hard. Donna has been my rock and my constant companion. Her smile brightens the room and refreshes my soul. Donna, I heeded the advice from General Casey that I share with you today. He was Chief of Staff of the Army, and he taught a great lesson to a large group of rising brigade commanders. He told us, dance with the ones that brung you. It was guidance to keep our spouses and our families first in our lives, despite the demands of the Army and command. He told us at the end of your retirement ceremony, the Army will move along, soldiers will rush off and take on other missions, and you will stand as a family and walk into the next phase of life together. There are no words to express the feelings of my heart as we walk as a family together toward the future. It's been a wonderful adventure. I talked about family, I want to talk about friends. Sometimes we're lucky enough that we form lifelong friends. And I'd like to tell you a story about my lifelong friend, Paul Humphreys. I'm grateful to be able to call Paul Humphreys my brother in arms and a lifelong friend. We walked into West Point together. We served as missionaries in South America at the same time. We returned to West Point together. We went on our first assignment to Korea together. We both served as scout platoon leaders in separate battalions in Korea. Then we jumped from the same aircraft into Panama as part of the 1st Ranger Battalion. Sheepdogs are doers. Doers need close friends. You're making lifelong relationships here at SVU that will carry you through tough times as you study, work, and live among other doers. I pray that you'll all have a chance to find your Paul Humphreys, your lifelong friend, your companion. Okay, you can read the inscription there. No, I'm not normal. Okay, I used to jump out of airplanes for a living, and I will tell you that we share a lot in common. We community of doers. Airborne Rangers, West Point graduates, SVU graduates, we have many characteristics that are the same. We're not normal on many levels. We choose to work when others play. We'll drop everything to put our lives on hold for 2 to 3 years to serve a higher calling. We know the honor and the importance of lasting friendships with those that have served and sacrificed. We went to school free from many of the distractions that others face. Big cities, things like having fun on weekends. We don't have to worry about those things. I personally spend Friday nights at West Point folding socks and cleaning my room to prepare for inspection. Take comfort here at SVU. Things could be worse. Know that these experiences build on our capacity to do hard things and get things done. They're qualifying steps to be doers. Let's talk a little bit about combat. So we're going to walk through some scenarios. We're going to talk about Panama, we're going to talk about Iraq, and we're going to talk about Afghanistan a little bit. In December of 1989, 1st Ranger Battalion conducted a night combat jump and an airfield seizure in Panama to remove President Noriega from power and stabilize the region. That's the official version, okay? Let me give you the backstory. True story. We were in planning for this operation, and I knew that at a certain point things were getting pretty close and that things were really tight. At that time, we thought we were really cool because we had beepers. Okay, so I was, as an XO for a company, I had a beeper that would tell me if something was up and that I had to go to work. It was a Sunday, and I was supposed to set up the Christmas tree that afternoon. I knew that things were getting really close, and I was running around trying to take care of some things, and thought that I had about another hour or two before the beeper would go off. I was wrong. The beeper went off, and then I had 15 minutes at that point to get to work. I didn't get the Christmas tree up. Didn't go over well with Donna. To this day, she's never asked me to put the Christmas tree up because she's afraid something's going to happen, and I'm going to have to leave. When we returned from that mission, General Luck, basically in a ceremony where we all received the combat infantryman's badge, he said, "You looked the tiger in the eye and you didn't flinch." Neil A. Maxwell taught us that not shrinking or flinching is more important than surviving. Let me just talk about those things that we have to do, I think we all do as doers, that help us ensure that we're prepared and that when we have to look the tiger in the eye, we won't flinch, we won't shrink. I think, quite frankly, as we take a look at this map right here, so this is actually an extract from the map that I carried with me when I jumped into Panama. I still have it. There's kind of two airfields there. There's one to the north, or the upper side of the map, a line, a yellow line that cuts across between the two, and then a blue arrow on the lower airfield. So there were two airports, two airfields, if you will, that were kind of connected, but still separated by a road. Our objective that night was to attack and defeat an airborne company that was located in the green circle. A lot of things happened that night that we weren't planning on. And that's part of the way things go when we start to execute. So there's two things I would like to just share with you. One, the planning piece, and the second thing, the training piece. First on training, it's very critical for us to lay out a plan before we go in. My company commander at that time was a man by the name of Dan Allen. Dan had been working, the operation was considered top secret, and he'd been working on the plan by himself for a great amount of time. And as he did that, I told you the beeper story, so 15 minutes later I went into work. 30 minutes later I was sitting in his office, and he pulled out the classified files. And he said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do." The other lieutenants and I we looked at the plan he drafted up, and we looked at each other and we shook our heads. Now this is a plan that this man had been working on literally for months. And we took a look at the task, the purpose, the timing, we said, and he could see it in our faces, and he was concerned. He said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Boss, this isn't going to work." He demonstrated a very important capacity of a leader and a doer. He listened, and he encouraged critical thought. If we had gone out and executed what he had put together that night, I think we would have been in big trouble. I don't think it would have gone well. But he had the humility and the expertise to know there's a time where you just have to listen to people. That was one of those moments. That is important as we plan. You have to have a plan, but then you have to be prepared to change. The second thing we have to realize is there's certain things we have to do as we train to be able to prepare to execute. I'd like to share with you a story about Ranger Markwell. Ranger Markwell was a young PFC. He had just arrived about 6 months prior to this operation, and he was a brand new medic. And unbeknownst to us, we had been training on live fire exercises on mock-ups that had built to look just like the different buildings that we were going to end up attacking about 6 months later. One night we were doing night live fire, and we were going through a medevac drill. And Ranger Markwell, this was kind of his first night live fire, his first real big go. And Rangers were bringing in these mock casualties into this casualty collection point, and Markwell's yelling and screaming and to go do this, go do that. And I was standing with the battalion commander, and he looked at me, and I went over, I grabbed Markwell by the shoulder, and I said, "You are now learning the lesson of being a quiet professional. understand all these men around you know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. All you have to do is show confidence, be calm under pressure, and everything will go well. The shouting stopped. The work began. Markwell was well prepared. But things, they don't always go according to plan. As we jumped in that night, and you saw, and I'll go back to the previous slide, the 82nd Airborne was supposed to follow our jump in along the blue line. Their jump masters were instructed not to allow anyone to jump out of the aircraft past that yellow line as the aircraft flew to the northeast. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. They ended up to continue to release paratroopers while we were attacking the objective in the green circle. I think you can kind of put together what would happen. We're attacking someone, parachutes coming down with people in them, probably not a good situation, right? Well, the building in the lower left was a barracks. That barracks was filled with ammunition unbeknownst to us, so when it was fired upon and attacked, it burst into flames. It was the hottest fire I'd ever been near in my life. Some of the ammunition in that building was filled with magnesium. It was just scorching. We couldn't get within 25 yards of this building. And that's when the paratroopers from the 82nd started to parachute out over top of this building. That's when you have to have a plan. But when the plan has to change, that's when the doers really step up. That's when you will be of most value. Because you can sit as a quiet professional and calmly look at the situation, even though you might just have minutes to respond and come up with a plan. That night we'd had translators, and we're using what they called psychological operations to try to get people to surrender. They were speaking in Spanish, and we had actually jumped in with these small loudspeaker systems. I calmly took the microphone from one of the Spanish speakers and started to announce to the paratroopers that they were landing in among Rangers, that the one, they shouldn't fire, and two, that they should move to certain lights, certain indicators that we had put up, certain signals we'd put up with the other Rangers for fire control. That way the Rangers could get a hold of these guys. Watched miracles as I watched paratroopers in parachutes right over that building, looking like they were going to go right into it, and somehow at the last minute, the heat from the fire seemed to pick them up and push them to the side. Some landed just feet from the burning building. The other thing that happened that night is there were some buildings that we went in to clear, and one short story. There was a team leader. He was leading a team of about 4 men that were about to go into a building, and the technique we used was to throw a hand grenade into a room, into a building, wait for 4 seconds, and then go in. We had different codes that we talked through over the radio, so everyone on the radio knew exactly what was happening in the operation. And I was listening. I knew the squad was about to go in a building. The building was just to the upper right of the burned-out building and the flattened building that you see in the picture there. Well, they threw the grenade. We heard the grenade cook off. And then we watched at about the 3-second mark as the roof blew off of that building. The net went silent. Everyone was considering what happened, wondering if the Rangers had gone in that building before the explosion. After about what seemed like an eternity, was about 10 seconds, the Ranger sergeant, the team leader, calmly announced that the building was clear and that he would move on. The mark of a quiet professional, calm under pressure, responding to changes to the plan. And things don't go as planned. We were counting on the use of some tanks that night. You can see a picture of one of the tanks. It's in the upper right-hand corner. That tank didn't do well. It was released at about 800 feet instead of about 1,200 feet. And you can see it didn't survive. We weren't able to use that tank that evening. Dan Allen, was a company commander. He's now a 4-star general and the second in command of the United States Army. Dan is seated there with other Rangers right under where his name is there. That's the first time I think I saw him sit down in about 2 days. One good thing about being a doer, after a long time of work, you know the joy of victory, and you know the joy of being able to relax. The good part of being a doer. I'm going to go rather rapidly through some of these and try to hit on some comments, for our time is short. I want to talk about defining moments. One defining moment I went through was in Iraq. This is years later. In the spring of 1991, paratroopers from the Airborne Battalion Combat Team of Vicenza deployed into northern Iraq to stop the virtual genocide of the Kurdish people being attacked and punished by Saddam Hussein. Donna had arrived about 2 weeks before we were to deploy, unknown to her, with Amber, 2.5 years old at the time, and she was 4 months pregnant with Levi. She didn't know what I knew. I was on an internal planning team, and I knew that we were getting ready to go to Iraq. I was absolutely in a rush to make sure that she was in the house, that she had a driver's license. And I remember one day I was like, Donna, we got to go get this driver's license. You got to get this Italian driver's license today. And she was like, what's the big rush? And I think finally I just looked at her. I was like, I'm just running out of time. And I think she understood. 2 days later, I was gone. We went to northern Iraq. Our mission there was to help the Kurdish people. I'd like to share with you one defining moment. As I was there one day, there were crowds and crowds of refugees that were retreating, trying to get from contested areas into safe areas. As we watched that parade of people, a father about my age carried a girl dying of cholera in his arms. The girl was about Amber's age. In half-broken English and hand and arm signals, he explained to me that he wanted us to take his blood and put it into his daughter so she could live. I had a decision to make. I called the battalion doctor over, and I said, what's this girl's chances? And he said, she'll live, but she's not going to live walking to the refugee center, which was still about a 1.5 week walk away. So I called in a medevac, called in the aircraft. The aircraft came in, took the father, took the daughter to the refugee center, caused an international incident because the refugee center was on the Turkish side of the border. So now we had taken Iraqi citizens, sent them in a U.S. aircraft into Turkey. The Turkish government wasn't real happy. John Abizade was my battalion commander. So he called me into his tent. I was his adjutant at the time, and asked me about the incident. I explained what I'd done and why I did it. That in my estimation, it was a life or death situation for the young lady. I had an opportunity to do good. He understood. He explained to me the international ramifications. He told me that he would support my decision that time, but he told me not to do it again. I still sometimes reflect on what it might be like. I think the lesson here is do the right thing and seek forgiveness rather than permission. As I look at Amber, sometimes I wonder now if there's a young family in Iraq with a grateful mother because I acted. We're very short on time. I just want to share maybe two or three other thoughts. The paratrooper that you see circled there, Michael Curry. Michael Curry was one of my squad leaders. Don and I stood with him as his family, as he married an Italian girl. This Italian family was just full of love. Sergeant Curry's family was not real happy about the wedding and would not come. So Don and I represented his family as part of this event in Italy. I had to miss another social event with my battalion commander that night, and he gave me a real hard time about it. Years later, when I found that Sergeant Curry had been killed in Afghanistan as a first sergeant in that same airborne unit, I was so grateful that we acted, that we did the right thing, that we supported him. and took a little bit of the heat for not being at a social event. Always do the right thing. Follow your heart. Always serve those who serve. Very quick story. One mission that I had as we went back into Iraq, part 2, was to help with the 2006-2007 surge. We had a problem in 2006 and 2007 in Iraq. We were losing. Jeff Kimmons was tasked to figure out how to break up terrorist networks in 2006 and 2007. He was a leading intelligence officer, and I had a special mission arrangement with him where if he needed me to do something, I would do it for him. He called me on a cell phone one day and said, "Brett, you need to field 28 brigades worth of a new biometric handheld device that we're going to use to break up the terrorist networks. And you got to do it in about 9 months." I remember I was in San Francisco at the time. I hung up the cell phone, got out of the cab, and felt like I was going to be sick. It was a huge task. Absolutely huge. But I had help. I'd like to tell you a story about Sergeant Major Bob Hammerly. He was a character. So we made all the arrangements, had gone through incredible adversity in trying to get this program together so we could get this equipment in to soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'd been in Iraq about a week trying to figure out how to field this, and everyone was upset. It was like I wasn't getting any cooperation. It was very difficult. Sergeant Major Hammerly would barely talk to me. He would kind of walk, and he'd kind of sit there, and then after about a week and a half of me kind of beating my head against the wall, he came in, my office, closed the door. He said, "Sir, you passed." "Sergeant Major, what are you talking about?" "Sir, you passed my test. You're the only officer in this whole place worth a hoot." Sergeant Major Hammerly had been a state trooper in the state of New Jersey, and then he told me this. He said, "This place is more full and fraught with treachery and chicanery than Jersey." Okay? "And I'm going to show you how we can do this." Because he saw my heart was pure, because he saw that I was trying to do the right thing, because he saw that I was a doer and a sheepdog and he was the same, he put it all on the line. He helped me. We fielded the equipment. It was credited with being a game-changing technology in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 2012, Forward Operating Base Salerno was attacked with an IED, truck-borne, 1,500 pounds, and got within about 200 yards of the mess hall. Sergeant Major Hammerly was standing outside the mess hall when the bomb went off. This was his 5th tour in Iraq and Afghanistan, still working the same project, still persevering, still being a selfless servant. For the 2nd time, he was severely wounded. This time resulted in multiple broken bones and traumatic brain injury. After the assault, or after the breach, you can see in the red circle there that a team of about 10 terrorists tried to enter that hole made in the fence from the bomb. They were stopped probably before they got to the mess hall. That was their goal, was to get to the mess hall and kill everyone else in that dining facility. You can see a picture of the dining facility there. This left a huge impression on me, and it helped me as I prepared for this next mission, which was to go to Afghanistan and become the chief of staff. I had 3 problems. One, there were people that wanted to attack that facility with a 30 to 50,000 pound bomb. That would have made the destruction at Salerno look like nothing. That would have leveled that huge compound of concrete buildings that you see there, or caused extreme damage. Oh yeah, and within the first 48 hours there, I was told, the only well we have is now broken, and the only way that we can get rid of our waste, our sewage, is to truck it out, and we're having problems with the project to put in a sewage treatment plant. So bombs, water, and waste were my life, okay? Along with trying to move a force of people and vehicles and real estate the size of Harrisonburg and move at 8,000 miles. Okay? Because of all those things that had happened before in my life, I sank to my knees. I asked for help. Help came. I pressed forward. You have the same opportunities as doers. Some of you will decide that you are sheepdogs. Some of you will decide that you want to take that on. Some of your paths will go in different places. But I want to assure you at this time that there are certain things that we have in common, certain lessons that will be real for all of us. The world needs sheepdogs and doers. Your SVU preparation to stand with the motivational elite will serve you well. There is no substitute for the education you have. There is no substitute for the benefit of a broad and liberal education, for critical thought, for those skills that you're learning here, for doing that in a small classroom where you can't hide. You are preparing to face your challenges of the future. Go and enjoy the benefits of this life as a doer. One parting comment, one parting offer. There's 2 sheepdogs that will be available here shortly. One's going to graduate from BYU, and the other's coming back from a mission. We're taking references, Don and I. You know how to contact us. Thank you so much for coming today. God bless America. Army strong.